Ooh, it's bright. Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden, and today we are going to be finishing up the entrance to the shade garden. Alright, so I've been working on the shade garden for several months. I've actually been thinking and planning on it for an entire year. And if you want to see the prior videos that got us to this point, I'm going to drop those down in the video description. Now, this project worked over several months and weeks just because I only had small amounts of time to work on it, and within budget. I couldn't go buy all the materials at once. I bought them a little bit at a time. But I'm going to go ahead and do a voiceover and show you how the whole process is of us getting to this final beautiful entrance. Now, I definitely started out with a sketch of what I was thinking, but since I was working on this project with Jeff, it was really important that I kind of talk through everything with him, and we definitely talked through each individual step. In all fairness, most of it's in my head, and I did get frustrated when he could not see what was in my head. But all in all, we worked really well together, and we did not divorce at the end of this project, which is always a good thing for us being 20 years married. But if you missed the first part, I did install metal posts into the ground with concrete, and here we are adding 4x4 posts that are 8 feet tall to each of the metal brackets that is sunk down into the concrete. Now, I did use hexagon head screws for all of these posts, and those are graded for outdoor use so they will not rust, and I just used my regular Ryobi cordless drill to install. Jeff did have a level that he used throughout the whole process as I was securing them to make sure that it stayed mostly level. We would in addition level as we continue going through the entire project. This part actually went really fast and was very easy for the two of us. Definitely a two-person project, and we were very happy with the results. Now, none of these posts ended up being the exact same height at the very end, but I will show you how we kind of squeezed around that. Since the ground was not perfectly level, these did not all end at the same place or at the same height, but we were able to work around that. Now, for some reason, I missed this next part. We used 2x4s cut to size and secured them with brackets between the two posts. The center part we left open because that's where the door is going to go. But we definitely needed this to make the overall structure much more stable. And these were super easy to install. I'll put up a picture of what they look like. On this side, we're going to run the 2x4 across. Now for this next part, we use a couple of clamps and a 2x4 that we're going to go horizontally across the entire structure. And then we're going to use the clamps to clamp the 2x4 to the 4x4s that are going vertical. And we use the clamps so that we would be able to level it without having to insert a screw. Once they were all clamped into place and we knew that the entire structure was leveled all the way across that 2x4, then we went back and secured it with additional hexagon screws. So let's talk about the type of lumber I'm using. I am using pre-treated lumber, and this was not my first choice. I'm not a big fan of treated lumber. I understand its purpose because it lasts forever. It's really great, but it's not great for the environment. However, the cedar posts that I wanted to use were 5 times more expensive than these 4x4s treated lumber, and I did not want to do untreated lumber because I really don't want to have to redo this in 2 to 3 years. So I opted for the treated lumber, even though it's not my first choice. But one thing's good is I'm not growing any food around these, and these pieces of lumber do not extend into the ground, so they're not constantly leaching chemicals straight into the ground. So I think this ended up working out really well working with this type of lumber. Now, a couple of things when using treated lumber, you need to wear gloves because a splinter from treated lumber can be toxic to your body. And if you are sawing or cutting the wood, you need to use a respirator or a mask. The vintage door will go, it hinges off of this side, like that. It's going to be higher, but I'll put a stop. On this side, it'll be like a little. So I've had this old vintage door for quite a while, and so here Jeff and I are kind of talking through it. He's going to hold it up so I can kind of get a general idea. I wanted to make sure water could flow underneath it and that it was tall enough for someone as tall as me to fit in it. I am now using the Sawzall to remove the extra length on those 4x4s that I originally talked about. And since the 2x4 that goes all the way across is level, I just had to use the Sawzall to cut off the excess of the 4x4s. And it was super easy, and then everything was leveled and looked like we had cut it perfectly to size the first time. So we opted to install an additional 2x4 across the top that would line up with the top of the vintage door. And this added more rigidity to the structure and just made Jeff and I feel more secure about the structure staying upright from side to side. And we use that same process of just using clamps to clamp it to the 4x4s in the back, and then using the level to level it. And then once everything was level, we screwed it all together. Now for the trellis portion, I ended up going with wood trellis. This is also pre-treated lumber as well, so it should last minimum 10 years, which will be really great. I do hope to stain this entire structure in the future, but pre-treated lumber needs about 60 days to dry out before it can be stained. So basically I'm installing the lattice work by adding a couple of screws at the top, making sure it's level, and then once it's leveled in place, then I did additional screws all the way down the length of the lattice. And then I used this super cool little circular saw tool from Ryobi. I'll put up a picture of it with the name, and I used it to cut all the way down the lattice. And I thought this whole process was way easier than pre-cutting my lattice, and then of course the potential of messing it up and cutting it wrong. So you can see here's the sawdust blowing up, and then me realizing, oh, I need a mask. So putting my mask on and continuing the process and just cutting individual little slots all the way down and up. And then once it was done, Jeff was just able to pop off the lattice work. It worked beautifully. Can I just tell you how pleased we were with ourselves at this point in time? I was so excited. And so we just went ahead and followed the same process with the lattice on the other side. Now, this lattice ended up being taller than what we needed because, like I said, remember the ground is not even at the base. And so I do end up taking that little rotary tool and cutting off the top additional lattice as well. But it went even faster the second time around. Once I was done, I started on the peak portion that I want for over the door. I wanted just like a traditional, like peaked 45-degree, or I guess 90-degree angle to go up above the door. And I just started with some 2x4s, also pre-treated lumber that I cut at 45-degree angles on each side, making sure that they're both the same length. And then I attached them to a 2x4 at the base and created just this basically a triangle. And so that was super easy to put together. I put it together all by myself. And then once I had that, I basically just leveled it up on the existing structure and added in a few additional screws. And I was really happy with how it came out with an additional detail. Now I know I could have stopped and not put this detail at the top, but I just felt it really needed a little something else. And I do have a vision for installing basically an art piece that I would like to design myself using wire and glass beads. I would love for sunlight to go through these glass beads and cast just beautiful colors across my garden. So that will be a future project coming up in the depths of winter. The final step to the process was installing the vintage door. I did make sure to choose hinges that were graded to carry at least 50 pounds per hinge. This vintage door is solid wood and it is heavy, 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 even though it's small. So basically we installed the hinges after figuring out which way we wanted the door to swing. I'm right-handed. I wanted to reach with my right hand and push it to my right as I entered. And so this is what worked best for me on this side. And we did install the hinge backwards the first time. And so we did take it all off and reinstall it again. And we got it right the second time and yay! So excited. I was super excited to see it actually working. Jeff was thrilled. We were very happy with the door and how it looked. Now, to make sure it didn't swing freely in the wind, I did install a little latch, a little catch latch, and I can reach through the lattice to open it, but I'll probably install a little string that will help pull the latch up. But here you go. Officially closed. Looks good. Ready to go. Yeah, I just have to tie a string to the other side. Okay, we got the last part installed. I'm excited. It looks good. There's a latch on the back side. I will probably install some kind of decorative doorknob at some point in time. I'm not in a hurry though for that. And I'm also going to be sealing this door. I'm just using like a waterproof sealer that you use on decks. I'm going to be using it on this door. I don't expect for this door to stay perfect, but that will help with it over time. And then the rest of the structure, since it is the treated lumber, it needs at least 60 days to cure. It's still very moist. So I probably won't get to staining this until maybe March. The reason March, it's just going to be too cold to come out here with the stain. The stain won't soak into the wood correctly. So I'll probably wait till March when it starts to warm up a little bit. But yeah, it's looking really good. I'm really excited. I love how it turned out. This top part will be a future project coming up where I'm going to do a glass bead installation here, which will be a really fun piece. And then I would love to do something similar in this area. I think would be really nice. And then in addition, I would love to hang some crystals in a couple of different places on the lattice work. So there are some kind of artsy details that I want to add as time, as I work over time on the piece. But I'm really, really happy with the structure. I like it just as is. So that tells me I'm really going to like it when I have something like these America roses. Like these are just big and gorgeous and lush. This is a climbing rose called America. Having this particular plant, it's going to get shifted and the goal is for it to climb up and over. Probably going to plant it into the ground over here so it can expand and get larger. It'll probably go right here on the edge. And then that will be trained to go up and over. And then from this side is where I'm going to plant that honeysuckle. And the honeysuckle is going to be trained to go up and over this direction. So I should have blooms at 2 different points in time going up over the structure. It'll probably take 2 to 3 years to get that, to get to that point. I am happy with how it turned out. I wish I could have used cedar, but I couldn't afford it. It was just too much. These were like $10 each, whereas like a 4x4 in cedar was like 50. and it just didn't fit my price range. These will last 15 to 20 years. I'm not growing any kind of food around these, and these are raised up from the ground. They're not sunk into the ground. I don't want to put treated wood into the ground because then it just lets go of all of its chemicals directly into the ground. But I think this will work out really, really well for what I need. It meets my budget demands, it meets my design demands, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I hope you all have enjoyed this journey so far on the shade garden. If you've missed the other videos, make sure you look down in the video description. It'll have several of the other videos linking to this point. And then the only other video I have coming up in 2023 will be moving into the shade garden. I have several plants that need to be moved over. And I do still need to install the sails back behind here. I don't know if that's going to be 2023 or 2024. We'll have to see. But I will still be installing the sails at that point. And so I'm really excited. It's going to be really fun, you know, moving into the shade garden and starting to grow a lot of different plants here. I think it's just going to be fabulous. I think it's going to be a really cool experiment. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know my latest videos are up. And be sure to check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.